up first, Luka Doncic is going to have to make a big career decision starting in a few days when the NBA Finals conclude. So the Boston Celtics won Game 3 last night, 106-99. This is, by the way, the third time in this series that the Celtics, in all three games, obviously, have held this high-powered Dallas Mavericks offense to under 100 points. 89 in Game 1, 98 in Game 2, and then 99 last night, obviously, with Luka Doncic fouling out in the last 4 minutes of this contest. Bryson, what do you mean by decision? What's that supposed to mean? Well, I'll tell you exactly what it means. So every NBA every NBA great, whether you're a great player or whether you are a legend, if you are an elite basketball player in the greatest basketball league on planet Earth, everybody's going to have a low moment. And this is kind of the low point for Luka. He's not having a terribly efficient series. We already knew Luka wasn't a good defensive player. I'll show a stat to kind of back that up in just a second. The analytics are off the charts on how bad he is. And also, you have a bigger microphone because it is the finals, or a bigger spotlight on the fact that the Duke whines and complains to refs more than any superstar I think I've ever seen in my life. It's unbelievable. And all of those things have been amplified. So this is the most I think Luka Doncic has ever gotten criticized for his play in the playoffs, because by and large, he's been a great playoff performer this NBA. And by the way, he hasn't been bad in the finals. He hasn't come up small like Magic did in 84, like LeBron did in 2011, like my man Steph did in 2016. He's not been bad, but he's not been Luka Doncic. He's going to have to make a decision, and here's what it is. So Michael Jordan, after the 1989-90 season, Chicago Bulls got to the Eastern Conference Finals, and they fell to the eventual back-to-back champion, bad boy Detroit Pistons. Now, famously in that series, there were the Jordan rules, as it became known as, when the Detroit Pistons, in today's NBA, the entire team would be ejected. Heck, I think 10, 15 years ago, the entire team, Pistons team, Lambeer, Isaiah Thomas, Joe Dumars, all of them would be thrown out of games in the modern NBA because it was not just a level of physicality that was maybe over the line to a degree, but it was also almost like tackle football and basketball. And I'm not saying that as a Jordan stan. I think LeBron's the GOAT, just for the record. Point is, Michael Jordan, arguably the greatest player ever, and certainly the best player in the world at that time, made a decision that offseason to say, okay, you know what? Detroit is playing me not only physically, but kind of bordering on dirty. I'd argue crossing the line on dirty. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get with my trainer, a man by the name of Tim Grover, probably the best basketball trainer of all time. And I'm going to bulk up. I'm going to get stronger. And when we see this team again, we see these bad boy Pistons, they're going to have hell to pay. Well, come 1991 Eastern Conference Finals, the Chicago Bulls swept the back-to-back champion Detroit Pistons, went on to win their first of 6 NBA titles. Michael Jordan adapted beautifully to it. He had a crossroads moment in his career, and he chose the road that wound up getting him 6 NBA titles. LeBron James, similarly, 2011, no question the low point in his career. He had just moved to Miami. It was the most scrutinized and criticized decision I think ever made by an NBA player as it pertains to off-court business or joining a new team. There's no question. The decision, despite the fact that it raised millions for Boys and Girls Club, was highly scrutinized, and LeBron still, to a certain degree, is criticized for that to this day. Gets the NBA Finals, Miami Heat, Dallas Mavericks. Heat are up 2-1. LeBron James plays about as poorly as we've ever seen him play at any stage of basketball in his life. At one point, I think it was either Game 4 or Game 5, had an 8-point game. And the Heat go on to lose the last 3 games of that series. The Mavs wind up winning one of the most shocking NBA titles ever, and LeBron was, rightfully so, eviscerated for that. So what did LeBron James do over the course of the ensuing few years as he wound up getting to 8 straight finals? He improved his jump shot, which he's still doing to this day. He just had his best 3-point shooting season this past season. Improve his jump shot, right? Adjust his game. Maybe commit more to the defensive end as an on-ball perimeter defender. If you want to look at the other side of that coin, if we want to look at other guys who have been at crossroads moments of their careers, great individually. We knew Michael Jordan was great in 1990. I wasn't around at the time, but folks knew Michael Jordan was great and the best player in the world in 1990. Duh. Folks knew LeBron was the best player in the world at that point in 2011. Duh. but they adjusted. They play more of a team-oriented style of basketball. Someone who did not make a decision similar to that of LeBron and Michael, a man by the name of Russell Westbrook. So after Kevin Durant left him in 2016, in the 16-17 season, Russell Westbrook famously averaged a triple-double. It had not been done in basically a half century since Oscar Robertson did it. Russell Westbrook averages a triple-double, wins league MVP, and the Thunder get bounced in the first round in gentleman sweep fashion by the undermanned Houston Rockets with James Harden. Not a great end of their season, certainly not a great end for a guy who had a remarkable individual season. Russell Westbrook had a decision to make because that offseason the Thunder brought in an older but Carmelo Anthony and a prime Paul George. Russell could have made the decision, hey, I'm going to shoot less because I'm not a very good shooter. Either I'm going to improve my jump shot or not shoot as much. And that guy, Paul George, who's led multiple Eastern Conference Finals teams, I'm going to let him be the focal point of our offense, kind of the driving force. And Russell kept taking a million shots, didn't adjust, didn't improve his jump shot in a span at all. And we all were left sort of wanting a little bit more out of Russell Westbrook. When at that time, I don't think he was the best player in the world, but he was the league MVP. Luka Doncic is going to have to make a very similar decision. So he is, in my mind, I've got him right now as the second best player in the world to Jokic. He's no lower than 3. If you want to put Giannis ahead of Luka, I got no issue with that. I can't put anybody else. I love Steph. I don't think he's better than Luka right now. Can't put LeBron over him right now. He just got gentleman swept by the team that lost to the team that Luka beat in 5 games. Point is, Luka's great. We all know that. Again, he's not having a bad NBA Finals. Last night, 26-6-6. What it is, though, and Brian Windhorst, he elaborated on that on ESPN with Scott Van Pelt after the game, talking about how Luka's inability to take accountability for either obvious foul calls on his part, on the fact that, again, even if there's marginal contact, or in some cases no contact, he's constantly whining and groaning and moaning with the officials, and yet somehow expects a different whistle. You know, when you tell somebody they suck at their job constantly over and over for 2.5 hours, my guess is they're not going to be overly sympathetic to you. They're just not. Not only that, but the lack of, it's not that Luka is a bad defender. We've had players in NBA history. Steph Curry is a prime example. Steph will never be regarded as a great defender, nor should he be. You cannot say that man does not try on the defensive end and sometimes give guys problems. Luka doesn't even attempt it. We can show you a stat right here. All stats provided by our friends at StatMuse. All graphics provided by my man Alfred Parsard Jr. Here's Luka Doncic defensively. Luka has allowed the highest blow-by percentage on drives in a series in the last 10 seasons, 67.7%. This is like second, third level analytics stuff, but 67% of the time in this series, Luka Doncic is blown past on a drive. Luka also holds, in the last decade, the second and third highest spots in that category. The Clippers in the first round drove past him 65% of the time when he was the primary on-ball defender, and the Thunder did the same 59% of the time in the second round. Not only that, but it goes to why the reason I bought into the Dallas Mavericks over the second half of the season when I didn't buy them when they were a 500 team through most of the regular season to start, and the reason I picked them to win this series was because while Luka was the focal point, him taking, the film says it, the numbers say it, in some spots, a step back. Let me get the ball to PJ Washington in the corner. Let him hit a couple threes. Let's throw the lob to Jarek Jones Jr. and to Daniel Gafford and Derek Lively. Hey, let's let Kyrie, this guy over here who's hit maybe one of the biggest shots in finals history, let's let him get some touches. Instead, and I talked about this on Monday after game 2, and some of the credit goes to Boston because how great a defensive team they are on the half court. But Luka has gone back into his bad old habits, and playing that style one-on-one basketball does not win championships, and I don't think it ever has. Even Kobe Bryant. Kobe Bryant, once Shaquille O'Neal left, was the ISO king. 81-point game, had the crazy streak of 40, 50, 60-point games in the mid-2000s, was unbelievable and couldn't get out of the first round. They got him Pau Gasol. He learned to defer to teammates again, and guess what he did? He went to 3 straight finals and won the last 2, and has 5 titles as opposed to the 3, and has 2 MVPs as opposed to 0. Luka's a great player. Nobody on God's green earth who watches a second of basketball is going to deny that. But it is the lack of accountability, and it is the unwillingness to adjust to what Boston is throwing at you. And it's moments like this at post-game pressers.
Luka, what did you think of the whistles that went against you in the fourth quarter?
I mean, I don't know. We couldn't play physical, so I don't know. I don't want to say nothing, but, 6 foul in the NBA Finals, where I'm like this. Come on, man. Better than that.
But you put yourself in that position. You weren't playing any defense throughout the course of that game. You commit 2 bad fouls at the end. Yes, were you trying to take a charge on Jaylen Brown? Sure. Was it in theory, an unselfish play, which taking a charge tends to be? Sure. But you got to know in the back of your head, okay, I got 5 fouls. I'm the best player on the court. Our only chance, Dallas obviously is down 21 in that game. I'm the primary reason that we got back into the game. I got to stay here for the last 4 minutes. If we lose this game, series is probably over. Luka would never admit that, nor should he, but the series is over. It's 3-0. No team's ever come back from 3-0. It's not going to happen this go-around. So, for Luka Doncic, this is going to be a crossroads moment. I don't look at this as a referendum on Luka, because this has been the best year of his career as it pertains to team accomplishment. And frankly, individually, he very well could have won MVP this regular season. But the fact remains, this style of basketball has never won a title to my recollection in NBA history. Listen, Michael adjusted in 1990. LeBron adjusted in 2011. Russell Westbrook didn't adjust in 2017. I mean, Carmelo Anthony didn't adjust in like 2010, 11, 12, that era of his career when he could have potentially been a part of winning basketball, but decided to be a same old ISO jump shooting defensive liability. Luka's great. The Mavs, even if they lose this finals, will have had an excellent regular season, exceeded just about everybody's expectations. But this is kind of the crossroads moment of Luka's career, where 10 years from now, when we're discussing Luka, whether it's at the end of his career or has retired, who knows, we're going to come back to this moment and say, this altered the course of Luka's career positively or negatively, depending on what he does in the ensuing decade. So kudos to Boston. And again, for Luka, this is an adjustment period for him, and we'll see if he's able to do that moving forward. I don't imagine the rest of the series, but going into next season. And by the way, the good news is, if you're a Mavs fan, what was the knock on Luka about 2 years ago? I remember when the Mavs got to the Western Conference Finals, lost to my Warriors, and Luka seemed to kind of wear down in that series, in part because he's playing the same ISO basketball even when he had Jalen Brunson on his team at that point. But what was kind of the knock on Luka going in that offseason? He was out of shape. Well, Luka has put more of a concerted effort. Certainly did this past offseason. I remember seeing one offseason picture of him. He looks skinny. It's like, Luka, I think he lost too much weight, dude. I didn't put on a little bit of muscle, right? Where, you want your best player and one of the best players in the world, maybe the best player in the world. Who knows? I still got Jokic, but you can make a case for Luka. You want him to be able to physically sustain the course of a full season, and he's adjusted in that regard. Like I'm watching the series. I don't think Luka's not having quite up to par the level series he wanted to have because he's out of shape or he looks tired. That's not the problem. So he has adjusted in that regard. He has listened to criticism from the Mavs and from others and said, you know what, I do have to improve. We'll see if he does it this go around. So be an interesting offseason story for Luka and the Mavs. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.